welcome to the Pretty Foolish podcast. And I'm pretty sure you can tell the person across from me is not Mr. Dan. Dan has previous engagements, so my dad's stepping in. What's up, Dad?
Oh, not much. Just hanging out, talking with Bret Saberhagen. It was really great.
Yeah, I can't wait to have we have our special guest today, Bret Saberhagen, 1985 World Series champion, two-time Cy Young Award winner. He's gonna be coming on with us in a little bit. So definitely stay tuned for that. How you feeling? Tired of from babysitting all week long?
No, not really. You know,
No.
your son is a ball of fire, but he's enjoyable.
Yeah.
He's
How do you
funny.
like how do you like changing diapers for the first time in 38 years?
It comes back to you. It comes back to you. You don't forget. It's
Mhm.
like riding a bicycle.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
good. That's good. Are you excited about talking to a real live major league pitcher?
Yeah, well, it's not the first one I've ever talked to, but it's been one in a long time since I talked to one. I mean, the other conversation was very short. And I talked to Tommy John a little bit once I met him, but it was only for like 2 minutes. So this is going to be
This is gonna
different.
be a little bit longer than 2 minutes, but
Yeah.
it's funny. Like his numbers don't really. Um, I wouldn't say he's probably not a Hall of Famer, but I know his career was marred by injury. I wonder if he would have been a Hall of Famer if he hadn't had so many surgeries.
Probably because he did have 167 wins and he had 1,700 strikeouts. So, he missed quite a bit of time in the when he was with the Red Sox. He was hurt for a whole year. He didn't pitch. So he could have got up into maybe 250. That's pretty close. So you used to be you had to have 300 to get in the Hall of Fame, but I don't think that's true anymore because
I don't
nobody's
even
getting
think 300 will even happen
wins.
anymore.
Nobody 200 is not going to happen anymore. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, unless someone like Garrett Cole or like what's his fucking name? He used to
Or
Kershaw or Verlander, guys who've been pitching for a while. They have a shot because they started before analytics really took over completely. So if it isn't those guys, I don't think anybody coming up now, like a Nestor Cortez or someone from this era, they have no shot at getting that close to 300.
no shot. I don't even think it's one because they just don't let him. They don't let him pitch uh, past 100 pitches, and if it's the fifth inning, they take him out, and they don't get the win. If the game is tied, or, they don't let him pitch. So you see that nobody wins 20 games anymore. Almost, it's very rare.
And I mean, you could be pitching a no hitter, and they'll take you out in the eighth or ninth inning because you're approaching a pitch count.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
That's so that's why I don't think you'll ever see those wins that amount of wins 200, 300. You'll never see that again.
um, it'll be fun to ask him about some of these new modern pitching changes when he comes on. So he should be coming on with us in a little bit. So as soon as he comes on, we'll get this party started.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can't talk to him.
yeah, me neither. Alrighty, guys, welcome to the Pretty Foolish podcast. I'm here with legendary MLB pitcher and World Series champion of the year I was born, 1985. Mr. Bret Saberhagen. How are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a pleasure meeting you, man.
Pleasure, our
Yeah.
pleasure.
Good to have your
Yeah.
dad on too. Yeah, it probably doesn't happen all that much, but good
Right.
to have dad stepping in and
I actually saw you pitch in the World Series, so I know he doesn't.
Yeah,
well,
I was the October 85. Yeah, I was only like a couple months old. So I don't remember. So
yeah.
I two different things online, so maybe you can clear it up for me. I read that you're originally from Reseda, California. Then I also read you're originally from Chicago Heights, Illinois. So I'm not sure which one it is.
Born in Chicago Heights, Illinois, and moved out to California when I was 4 years old, and grew up in the San Fernando Valley, Reseda. So yeah, they're both correct. Yeah, spent a lot more time in California than Chicago, but My grandfather was the one that really got me into baseball, and it took me to my first big league game. I used to go back there in the summertime until baseball really took over for me in California when it was probably, yeah, nine-ish. But yeah, I was a Cub fan growing up because that's who my grandfather really liked. And so everybody asks me now, who do I root for? And it's like my Cubbies, of course.
Still you never transitioned over to California team?
I did. I did after a while. I became a Dodger fan growing up in the San Fernando Valley and then being close. So yeah, Cubs and Dodgers I followed growing up and enjoyed both of those teams.
Your first year in the majors was 1984. And then
Correct.
you were drafted by the Kansas City Royals, where you spent probably a large chunk of your career. Um, how did you feel about being drafted by the Royals as, like, a guy who was from Illinois, grew up in California? Like, did you have like a dream team? Like my parents, they grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in the next town over from the Bronx, and my dream would have been to be New York Yankee. So I don't know if where you stand on what your dream team to be drafted by was.
Well, it probably would have been the Cubs or the Dodgers. Yeah, that would have been first and foremost. I really didn't follow the American League all that much. I knew all the teams that were in the American League because I was a baseball fan, but really didn't follow a whole lot of baseball back then. And then when I was growing up too, it wasn't like you have the MLB channel or you have baseball. You can see any team anytime you want. There was only certain
Right.
teams that you could watch. It was the Cubs during the day, and then you'd have the Braves as well. So it was more of the National League fan for me. So I was very surprised when I got drafted. Wasn't surprised, but was really thinking that if I got drafted, I was going to go to a National League team just because that's the passion I had growing up for those teams.
So one thing I want to ask before I turn over some questions to my dad. Um, you were teammates with George Brett. Um, I know I'm sure you're familiar with the infamous New York Yankee video where Billy Martin has him thrown out of the game for the pine tar and he comes charging out of the mound. How was he as like a teammate? Like, he seems like a very intense guy.
Very intense. That was a year before I got there. That was 1983 that happened. But yes, a raging bull, I guess that would be the best way to describe George at times. Very intense. If you told him he couldn't do something, he would probably prove you wrong. Just a great athlete, led by example. Showed up every day and gave everything he had to the game and played it the right way. That's for sure.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, I remember that.
Dad, you
Yeah, I
again.
watched on TV. I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, craziness. Yeah, and Tim McClellan, the home plate umpire, 6'7" ish, very tall, and Tim was even backing away from him.
Oh yeah, Billy Martin was a little guy, but he wasn't afraid to get into a skirmish.
No,
No, he liked to mix it up in the dugout with just any player, especially Reggie, it seemed like.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dad, you had a question?
Yeah, Brett, I was just wondering what you think of the pitch clock they got now. Do you think that helps the pitcher to keep him in a rhythm, or do you think it hinders him because he's in a hurry all the time?
Well, I don't like watching 4-hour baseball games. I think if it goes over 3 hours, it's long. It's tough to
Mm-hmm.
uh, and yeah, for me, I could get the game. I was watching, who did I watch the last night or the night before? It was 2 hour, 2.5 hour game. I don't recall who it was. It was a shutout thrown, but I like watching a good ball game, but not when it's the Yankees and the Red Sox and it's taking 4 hours to 4.5 hours to play a damn baseball game. So I like the pitch clock. It makes the pitchers work a little quicker and get ready instead of doing whatever they're doing. But for
Yeah,
me, falling into a good rhythm and in a good groove and staying on pace, that got me. If I was lollygagging around or a guy would step out, I'd probably drill him because it's one of those things where, hey, if I'm into a good rhythm in that and you're trying to take me out of my rhythm in that, you're going to have to pay for it one way or another.
Right, right. What do you think about the pitch counts also? I mean, you one year you had 12 complete games. You pitched 2 complete games in the World Series. Nowadays, the guy gets 50 pitches, 100 pitches. Doesn't matter if it's what inning it is or what the score is. He's out of the game.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's I'm
nobody.
not a big fan of analytics.
Yeah,
Again, I think it has a little something to do in the game in that, but when analytics take over everything and you got pitchers more worried about spin rotation and not control and guys having 70 something pitches after 3+ innings and that's a big part of it is that these guys are throwing so many pitches and falling behind in 3-2 counts and
right.
it's for me, it's a joke. I love the game, and I still think there's some amazing pitchers there. But when you have a pitcher that's throwing a fastball and he's missing his target by 6 to 8 inches on one side or the other on a consistent basis and doesn't know where he's throwing the fastball, I'm surprised he's still in the big leagues, to be honest. I can understand you missing with a breaking ball, but a fastball, and I see it nonstop. If you watch a game closely, you'll see a lot of pitchers when the catcher sets up, they're missing on fastballs 6 to 8 inches on a regular basis, and
Right.
that's part of the issue is that you're throwing so many pitches out of the strike zone and falling behind that you're getting your pitch count up and you can't last very long. And the other thing is after you come around the lineup for the third time, they're afraid that they're gonna find something out on you. Well, if you pay attention to any of the stats and any of the guides that they have, and they can watch video upon video upon video and pitches upon pitches on pitches,
Mhm.
every pitcher out there, you're going to pretty much know what he's going to do or what he wants to do to you. So I don't get that one either, and it kind of sucks that the manager can't manage with his eyes anymore. He's got to manage with
With a computer.
analytics. Yeah. So it's the gut feeling and the managing with your eyes is long gone. I shake my head at times.
Yeah, I agree.
It's actually funny that you say that people are so concerned with the spin rate. It feels like to me when you watch a lot of young pitchers or a lot of maybe not young, but maybe guys who are like newer to the MLB, that it seems like they're not pitching. It seems like they're just throwing the ball as hard as they possibly can, and they're being compensated like ridiculously well for it. I feel like there's no real like incentive to like master the craft of like painting corners or being accurate as long as you can consistently hit 98 to 101, inning after inning, pitch after pitch, you're going to have a place in the MLB. And you are someone who is known for having an electric fastball and like pinpoint accuracy. And I was just curious if you felt that way too, that when you see these guys, they're throwers, they're not really pitchers.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why they have the umpires checking their hands and gloves and stuff now is because the pitchers were so concerned with the spin rotation and they needed to have the sticky stuff so that the ball would come off. Well, if you lick your fingers and go to the rosin bag enough, it's going to be a little tacky. So I've never understood that. Um, yeah, I mean, I can understand if you needed a little bit of tackiness during maybe the first part of April when it's really cold out and you can't feel the ball and you can't, especially for the curveball and trying to pull down with the curveball. That's when you want to have a little more tackiness on your hand in that. But during the summertime, I was blown away when I heard about that. They were all concerned that they needed to have their spin rotation up and again, it's about hitting your spots. Guys can hit 100+ miles an hour, but if you're looking for a fastball and you put it where they can't hit it, you're gonna be around a lot longer than just throwing wherever. So it again, there's some great pitchers out there that do an amazing job. I think the Tommy John thing that's going on with so many people having Tommy John surgery, and again, I'm not a doctor by any means, but if you're trying to throw the ball as hard as some of these guys are and trying to twist your wrist, you're going to have some elbow issues. So a true slider is when it just comes off your fingers and you have a break probably about from here to here. You get guys that are, having this ball, their curveballs break, a good foot and a half, and they're throwing it so hard with so much velocity and twisting on their wrist and stuff. That's causing a lot of elbow problems. But the good news is if you have that elbow surgery, that sometimes you're coming back even throwing harder than what you did before. So, and I've heard of kids, young kids, having that surgery where they really didn't even need it because there are other pitchers coming back, especially in the big league level, that were throwing the ball harder than when they before they had the surgery. So I think it's just proper mechanics and proper way to throw the different pitches. So yeah, it's I had shoulder surgery, never had any elbow surgery, but the baseball I don't think was meant to be thrown overhand. So I always amazed at some of the longevity of some of these guys in the big leagues that have thrown so many innings over their whole entire lifetime and have never had a shoulder issue or problem, maybe some tendonitis or something, but never any major surgery. And if there was one thing that I could have changed on my career, that would have definitely been it not been hurt so much as I was.
Do you think that that money plays a factor into injury? Because I was thinking about it the other day. Like you said, not a lot of these guys anymore, like from your era or the era before, even like the Derek Jeter, like A-Rod era, like Roger Clemens, those guys like from like the late '90s. I'm sorry, the mid '90s. Um, that these guys can get paid so much for such a small sample size of a career because they can throw so hard, and like you said, they have such a hard break from the spin rate that they're more concerned with making money quickly than actually having like a career, like a lengthy career, like get a 5-year deal for $200 million and be injured for 90% of it because of all the spin rate stuff. That's a theory I have, is that these guys are doing things like you said that they're not meant to do because there's so much money getting thrown around with the broadcasting rights and everything. I mean, it's every sport now, but baseball is the only one left without a cap. So you can conceivably make 100 million a season.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that they are concerned with the amount of pitches that some of these pitchers throw because they they're getting paid a lot of money and they want them healthy and they don't want them not being able to go out there and help the team. So I think there is some protection in that. I think that's why a lot of times now you don't see guys playing 162 ball games anymore. Back when I was playing, it was normal for a bunch of guys, throughout the league to play 162. Nowadays, you don't see that happening very often, and I'm sure Cal is shaking his head and one of those records that everybody knows that's never going to be broken.
Yeah, I feel like baseball is the sport where people you know try to break records more than any other sport. I feel, and I feel like the last 10 or 15 years of baseball, it's almost like they want to get away from that. They don't want Pete Rose's record broken, Nolan Ryan's strikeouts broken, DiMaggio's consecutive hitting games. Like they bench guys on hot streaks. They do the work management, like load management, like they do in basketball, where like LeBron plays like 50 games a season and all that stuff. So I feel like baseball has gotten away from that, that record heavy people trying to go after records, and like you said, cows will never. I mean, it would never get touched. It's impossible at this
Yeah,
point.
it's pretty amazing. Yeah. And again, I love records to be talked about all the time, and records, as they say, are made to be broken, and it's crazy how many new stats and records that I hear on a regular basis with all sports. I don't know who has the time to dive in and go through all of those games that have been played in all the sports. You kind of I kind of marvel at whoever is coming up with all these amazing stats on different things. Some of them, and again, I couldn't tell you what war means. Um,
Yeah.
wins
They make
against replacements or something like that.
Yep. Wins above
Uh,
replacement.
so, and I don't know how that's all calculated. I'm
No
more
clue.
wins and losses and saves and ERA. Yeah, give me a good batting average, some home runs and some RBIs, not very many strikeouts. And talking about strikeouts, Steve Balboni was a great teammate, gentle giant, and he struck out 200 times in a season, and he was so disappointed and so mad. And now you got guys getting close to 200 by the All-Star break. It's ridiculous how many strikeouts. All they want is home runs and
strikeouts.
the eyes. I mean, if you're hitting 215, you still are in the big leagues. If you were hitting 215 back when I was playing, you better be looking over your shoulder because you're not going to be in the lineup very much after a few games, unless you get your crap together. So
Yeah.
it's games played very differently than
Different. I always said I'd rather have 9 men on my team who hit 300 and didn't hit a lot of home runs than have 9 guys hit 40 home runs and bat 200. You know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love pitching to the big power hitters because they had more holes in their swing,
Mm.
and so I felt like I could pitch to their weaknesses quite a bit, where the pesky guys that put the ball in play, did a lot better
Right.
against me. So yeah, give me a strong power hitter any day of the week that like to hit home runs, and I'd love to pitch to them.
You get a guy like Wade Boggs. The pitch was in close. He just keep fouling it off until he got what he liked.
Boggsy wore me out. I think he hit 450 off me. That was a good reason why he hit as high as he did career wise. But there was one game in particular against Boggs, and I saw him at an autograph show I did not too long ago, I think last year. And he was smiling about. He said, "Yeah, I love to hit against you, Sabes. I won't lie about that." But one game I threw 3 pitches: fastball, curveball, and changeup. And the first 3 at bats, he had base hits on all 3 different pitches. And it's like, I don't have anything else to throw to you.
And that's the funny thing about baseball now is that a guy like if Wade Boggs came up tomorrow for the New York Yankees, he would probably be sent down to the minors because he'd be batting 310 with 4 home runs, and they'd have no use for him because he only had 4 home runs.
Yeah, no, it's again, I shake my head at a lot of things that go on in baseball. Not that I don't love it still, but
Mhm.
kind of just shake your head. It's like I can't believe the things that are going on and the thought process of what's going on now. And again, I think a lot of the pitching and catching, and I would say probably more of the pitchers don't know how to call a game because when you're going through high school and you're going through college, the majority of those coaches are calling the games for the pitchers. So by the time you get to pro ball, it's like, okay, whatever the catcher puts down, I'm going to throw because I have no idea what I want to throw in what situation and how to set up a hitter and how to get them off balance. And, if you want the outside part of the plate, you got to be able to throw inside, and that's not just knocking a guy on his ass. So I enjoy a lot of the guys, some of the veteran guys that are still pitching that know how to pitch. I'll give you a good example. Kyle Hendricks, who has had an amazing career. He throws 90 tops, 90, 91 maybe tops, but moves the ball around. Reminds me of a lot like Maddox. Maddox, he threw 90, 91, not overpowering. But when the game was over, you go go to the clubhouse shaking your head. Is like, how did he just stick the bats up our butts sideways? And we couldn't hit him. Just knows how to pitch. I love guys that know how to pitch, move the ball around both sides of the plate. It's amazing.
In and out, down, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So speaking of shaking your head, I know there's always a lot of stuff in the news about how bad the umpiring is nowadays. They're testing out the robo umpires. What do you think of that as a situation? And would that have been something you would have liked to have seen when you were in your prime?
Well, yeah, I loved when I pitched, and I think the umpires do a pretty damn good job. And again, I mean, a lot of these calls, and nowadays, they're keeping the glove on the guy because of the instant replay and that, and in case they come off the bag at any given time. Back when I was playing, you just gave him a swipe and that was it. You didn't worry about if he came off the bag or not because you didn't have instant replay in that. But I honestly think the umpire is doing a really amazing job for what they're asked to do and to be on top of their game. But I love the aspect of when I was pitching because you had different strike zone for different umpires. So John Hirschbeck, I loved. John Hirschbeck would give me six inches off the outside part of the plate, but he wouldn't give me the inside part of the plate for a strike. So I'd start off a game and I'd throw the ball, one or two ball lengths off the outside part of the plate, strike, and I'd keep moving it away, strike. And then I'd move it away a little bit further and he'd go ball. So I knew, okay, this is as far as I can go. Some guys had a higher strike zone, some guys had a lower strike zone. So you really, as a pitcher, you had to adjust, and as a hitter, you would have to adjust to that umpire behind the plate strike zone, which I loved. Nowadays um, it's more consistent from umpire to umpire. I think they do a good job. Yeah, and you have so many cameras and you have so many angles for all the games nowadays. You can see if they're actually missing something. So I think there's more of a checks and balances nowadays for the umpires. Back in the
Absolutely.
days, they didn't have anybody to say, well, you're doing a really crappy job and your strike zone's terrible and you're going to be fired. You couldn't fire an umpire back when I was playing. So yeah, regardless, if you have to always have the home plate umpire. I don't care what they say. If they have an automatic system that calls balls and strikes, so be it. You always have to have an umpire back there for many different reasons. Um, uh, Foul tips, for
Plays at the
plays
plate.
at the plate. Yes. There's so many different times that you actually need to have that umpire there. If they're going to take away the balls and strikes from the home plate umpire and be called automatic, if it seems like that's where the game's going, all the analytics and all the technology and all this stuff that they're doing, I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually did that.
I wonder if it'll be like football, where like the guy calls the plays from up in the booth. If they'll be like watching it, somebody will be watching it up in a booth and being like relaying it in real time.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Trying to make it into a
Yeah.
video game.
Pretty much that's what is getting to sound like. Exactly. Yeah. A little too automatic.
Right.
But,
That was
So
always
we
there's always the element of what's going to happen next. Whether the guy made the play, whether he was played far enough left or right behind the bag, or whether the hitter was supposed to hit it where it ain't, and they don't want to do that anymore. That's why they did away with the shit. They made the fielders adjust to the hitters.
yeah.
I think that's partly because of analytics. I think analytics, the point of it is they almost want to predict the outcome before it happens, so they can kind of, like know where they're going to wind up at the end of the season before a first pitch is ever thrown. And every sport needs a human element. I mean, otherwise, like you guys said, you're just playing a video game, and eventually that isn't fun anymore. You switch games to something else.
One of
Um,
the cool things that I hear on a regular basis, there used to be a Nintendo game, RBI Baseball,
I was
and
just about to say that. Now RBI Baseball '91.
People will come up to me. I used you. You were so good at RBI Baseball, and I used to throw from 3/4, and it wasn't over the top. And yeah, I love hearing that. Yeah.
You were on a team with Quisenberry. When I was a kid playing
Quiz.
RBI Baseball, I thought that was like the coolest last name.
Yeah, Quiz was an amazing human being. Loved him.
So we talked a lot about modern baseball. Um, when you played in the 1985 World Series, it was only your second year in the majors. If I'm not mistaken, I believe you were the World Series MVP.
Yes.
That is correct.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you take me through that season, as summarized as you can, just being a young guy on a team that, for lack of a better word, wasn't known as a perennial playoff team, and just on that run, against the Cardinals, who have the second most championships, I think, next to the Yankees.
Yeah, no, it was I kind of got my feet wet in 1984 and became one of the starters. So going into 1985, um, into spring training, I had a spot established as one of the starters, and I just really pitched well from start to finish. Uh, we we lost in the playoffs in 1984 to the Detroit Tigers. And back then, people really don't probably realize that there's only two teams in the American League and two teams in the National League that made the playoffs. So you had the American League East and the American League West, the National League East, National League West. You had one team that made the playoffs out of each division. They played
Right.
each other, and then you went to the World Series. So it's kind of nice now that you have so many other teams that have the ability to go to postseason. But we were down 3-1 against the Toronto Blue Jays, which had a great ball club. And talking about your Yankees, they actually had a better record than we did in 1985 when the season was over. Um, in the wrong division. So we came back and won that series against the Blue Jays, and so when we got down 2 games to nothing, I pitched the third game of the series. It was in St. Louis, and we ended up winning that game. We kind of felt like, hey, we were in this situation the series before this, and we came back and we won. So we never really didn't feel like we were going to win in 1985 in the World Series, I should say. And then they made it really easy on me in Game 7. We got out to a big lead early by the fifth inning. I think we were up by 8 to 10 runs, and ended up throwing a complete game shutout. Yeah, 2 games, two complete games, 1 earned run in 18 innings, and it was great because I never really watched. I've seen highlights of the 1985 Game 7, and my wife and I, Candace, she said, you know what, I've heard so much about your career, this and that. I'd love to watch the World Series with you. So we sat down, I don't know, probably about a year ago or so, and we watched it from start to finish. And yeah, it was pretty cool to see because I didn't remember I threw that many pop-ups. I had a lot of guys flying out and popping out. Just pitch efficient, moving the ball each side of the plate. Not a lot of strikeouts. But yeah, and that was a World Series where we actually got to swing the bats. It was every other year, or no, I think it was no, it was every other year at that time where you would the pitchers would hit for themselves, and then the following year you would use the DH. It was every other year because I did hit at our ballpark in Kansas City. I swung the bat in Game 7. So yeah, that was another thing back in the day that yeah, it alternated every year from DH during the World Series, and that really kind of hindered us a little bit because Hal McRae was an amazing hitter for us, and he was our DH, and he came in and pinch hit a little bit, but he wasn't in the lineup on a regular basis, and so we kind of missed his bat a little bit, but we got through it all right.
Yeah, you guys brought it home. You're also a two-time Cy Young Award winner. Um, would you ever consider coaching now?
No, no. I did a few years back. Threw my name in the ring at a few different places. It didn't ever work out, but I think with the way the game has changed, I don't know if I could actually deal with the analytics and I still love talking to young men about how to pitch and how to work a hitter and do that stuff. And um, we have a nonprofit that takes up a lot of our time, and I enjoy being around my wife on a daily basis. So being away and doing that traveling stuff again, it's never gonna happen. I won't be out there coaching. You won't be seeing me doing that.
I'd love
Is
to hear
that
about this nonprofit though. Sorry, Dad. I didn't
okay?
mean to cut you off.
That's all right. I just said, is traveling the worst part of the game?
It's not really it's being away from your family and
Yeah,
being in the city for a couple of days packing and unpacking that but the travel is really taken care of for you. You show up at the hotel, you got a key package. Sometimes they even have it at the ballpark for you. You bring your suitcase to the ballpark and it's put on. The next time you see it is in your hotel room. They bring it up to your room. Your baseball gear, you pack it up, whatever you're taking with you, and then it's you show up at the field and it's all in your locker. So the travel was always pretty easy. We stayed at beautiful hotels and we had charter planes, and so the travel was easy. It was just tough being away from family
just
and yeah, the packing and unpacking and at times waking up in a city and not sure where you're at.
I can believe that.
You were teammates with David Cohn, were you not?
Yes, on a couple of different times, absolutely. Yes, Coney,
I think
amazing picture.
I think he would make a phenomenal manager, especially because he's so analytical, which fits with today's, baseball narrative. But just because of all the stories I heard about him, how like his arm would be like half dead, so he'd like figure out a way to like throw a different arm angle so it didn't hurt as much, and just coming up with ways to hold pitches on the mound that he, just winging it, kind of like a rebel almost. And just curious, like, any stories about Coney or like what you think if he'd make a good manager.
Well, I don't. Yeah, he did create a lot of different arm angles in that, and I never really. And we were teammates on multiple times with the Mets and with the Royals, and the reason why I made it to the big leagues as quick as I did was because David was actually ahead of me as a pitcher, but he was covering home plate on a pass ball and. The guy took his knee out and he had to have knee surgery, so he kind of fell back behind me and with the rehab and that. But I think if he would have never gotten hurt, I would have been probably going to AAA rather than the big leagues. Great pitcher, knew how to pitch, absolutely. I think he would be a great pitching coach for sure, um, just because of the way he thinks and how he can set up hitters and what he really wants to do and achieve, and dependent on the situation as well. I mean, a lot of guys go out there thinking that they're gonna strike out every hitter, and they're thinking strike out from the first pitch. I never thought strike out until I got to two strikes, and then sometimes I didn't even want to get the strikeout. I was looking for a double play ball or maybe a pop up. So it really depended on the situation, on what I wanted to do, and you know. These guys love strikeouts nowadays, and I'd rather have a lot less strikeouts in a game and but be out there in the ninth inning. So yeah, the bigger strikeout pitchers, the more the more pitches you're going to end up in a game with.
When you threw your no hitter in '91 against the White Sox, did you feel it from the beginning of the game that you had your best stuff that day, or was it just I got through it?
No, it's a great question. A lot of times when you have your best stuff, when you're warming up in the bullpen and that, you go out there and you don't last very long in the game. In other games, you can't find anything in the bullpen. You go out there and have an amazing game. So there's really no rhyme, no reason. But that in particular game, I had gotten to the seventh, eighth inning with no hitters in the past. I had a perfect game against the Brewers, going 7 2/3. And this particular game, after I got to the seventh inning, uh, I really made a conscious effort of going pitch to pitch, where previously I was worried about out to out. And once you get to the seventh, it's like, okay, I need, so many more outs, and this point in time, when I got to the seventh inning, I really focused pitch to pitch on what I wanted to do with the hitter and what pitches were working in that. So yeah, and it's ironic that my third best pitch, my fastball and changeup were kind of my top two pitches. I could throw them for strikes in any counts. 3-0, 3-1 behind in the count. So it really kept the hitters off balance, not always being able to see a fastball when you're behind in the count. But I always like to work ahead in that count. But this particular game, and I always said that if I had my curveball early in the game, it was going to be a lot of fun that particular day. So a lot of times I'd have to continue to throw the curveball and get a feel for it. So by the fourth, fifth inning, it was there. But a lot of times it wasn't there for the first few innings. But that particular game, I had a really good curveball, and the last out of the game was against Frank Thomas, curveball down and away, and a little weak one hopper, I believe, to Terry Shumpert at second base for the final out of the game. But it was actually a breaking ball, and a cool thing about it, it broke his bat, but he also signed the bat and sent it over to me, which was pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was very cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. I know, just me being me, like there are things that like, with my job or whatever that, I'll think of like, man, I really wish I would have did that differently. Is there any particular game at any level that to this day haunts you that you wish you could just Marty McFly time machine and rectify or do something different?
Yeah, no particular game. I think the one thing that if I could do any Marty McFly would be somehow, some way, staying away from injuries. I had a lot of different injuries, knee, shoulder, elbow, bone chips taken out, tendonitis in my shoulder so many times. And if I could have one thing changed in my career, it would have been a healthy career throughout each and every year. And as a lot of people knew me as an oddball, because in even number of years I didn't have as great as success as I did in the odd number of years. So if you look at my career overall, the majority that's the stats that I had when the odd years were much better than the even number of years. So yeah, just different reasons, each even year, going out and not being completely healthy for the most part.
Who would you say is your favorite player now and favorite player all time?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's funny. I loved the early the 60 Cubs, Ernie Banks, Billy Williams. But probably my favorite was Jose Cardinal. He was a right fielder for the Cubs. Shorter guy. He had a big old afro, and I don't know how he kept his hat on his hair. And he had this little, kind of wobble as he jogged in and out off the field, and that I just really loved Jose Cardinal. And then when he became, in LA and the Dodgers, of course, Say and Bill Russell and Dusty Baker. So those were the guys that I really, really admired. And what was the other part of that question?
Now, your favorite player now, or
Oh,
the player you
wow.
think is the best now?
Favorite player now? You know, I've always been a big Kershaw fan. I love the fact that he gives back quite a bit, as with his nonprofit. Big family guy. I love that fact. He an amazing pitcher. He's got a quirky windup and it works for him. It's almost kind of reminds me of Jim Furyk's swing. It's like, how does that golf swing work? And I look at Kershaw's windup and stuff, and how is he so consistent? And how can he throw so many strikes? And just an amazing pitcher. But you got to love Shohei Ohtani as well. He's a guy that pitches and swings the bat as well as he does. He's right up there. I love him as well.
Tell us about your nonprofit. Me and my dad were actually, talking about it amongst ourselves before you came on. I would just love to hear all about it from the man's mouth himself.
Yeah, it's near and dear. I felt like I was put on this planet to do more than baseball, but and it gave me the platform to do what we're doing now, Candace and I, my wife, and it's really made a big splash because of the name. So that's a blessing. So I really got to feel very fortunate to have played baseball at the highest level for a good period of time and had success there. But really feel like what I'm doing now with my wife is what I was really put on this planet to do. And the 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 short of it is we help families going through cancer. And what we do is we help relieve any debt that they might have um, while they're going through cancer. So we started this out in 2020 when she was going through her third diagnosis of breast cancer. It wasn't successful, so we had to go through an alternative treatment, and we were spending out of pocket $22,000 a month. Fortunately, we were able to do that, but she did a little bit deeper dive into it and was just flabbergasted that how do families that are going through cancer actually pay out of pocket. With that being said, Saves Wings, our nonprofit, helps families going through cancer, and it doesn't matter what type of cancer it is, and it doesn't matter how old or young you are. If you have problems paying your bills and you're in debt and you're falling behind, and it doesn't matter whether it's the medical side or the home side of it. We'll pay utility bills, we'll pay some mortgages. We pay directly to the bill, but we try to alleviate as much debt as possible. And we've been doing it for a little over 3 years now and been very successful. We've helped out families in 18 different states. And we continue to do some amazing things on a regular basis. And we always say that, going through cancer, and I think everybody, if you haven't had someone in your family or some loved one close to you, um, uh, you're out of the normal. Cancer is so it's like a California wildfire now. It's everybody is coming down with it of some sorts. And when you're going through cancer, you never know whether you're going to make it or not. And it's already terrifying to have to go through the treatments and fight for your life and not know whether you're going to come out of it. But then again, when you add the fact that um, how are we going to pay for my wife, my child, my husband? How are we going to pay for these bills? It's even more stressful, and we don't feel like anybody should have to worry about trying to keep a loved one alive. And what's crazy is that even with our insurance and her diagnosis after three three diagnoses and four treatments, when we go in to get her scanned every 6 months, we have to pay out of pocket. Our insurance doesn't cover her scans. It's just ridiculous on what they cover in that. So we have our annual event October 5th and 6th in Central Coast, California. We have a Lifetime Achievement Award each and every year. We've had Toby Keith, and last year was Mark Rippon, Super Bowl MVP of Washington Redskins. This year we have Chad Rava, who is one of our board members, and he's gone through cancer of his own. They own a winery, him and his wife, in Central Coast. And do amazing stuff for multiple organizations with cancer in and around the Central Coast. So we have some celebrity friends that show up in that. But our big thing that we have going on right now is the 1985 campaign. So 1985 for $19.85 a month, you pledge that for a year, and it equivalates to one of our cancer warriors utility bill for a month. So it's and why the 1985 was because of the year that I had in 1985 is coming up on 40 years this next year. So My wife kind of came up with that idea because we're always needing funding to help our families out. So if anybody's out there and asking for ways to help donate to us, you can go to our website at saveswings.org. You can click onto the donate button and find the 1985 campaign. You can donate more if you want. We have some people do more than 1985 a month, but it really helps us out as that residual income is much needed. The more that we grow and the more that people find out about Saves Wings and the more and around the country, we need that financial support. So if you're looking to help us out and help some families out, please go to our website at saveswings.org. And if you have somebody that is struggling going through cancer and trying to figure out how they're going to keep a loved one alive, or if they're skipping medical treatments because they can't afford it, it's all, we hear it all too often. So check us out as well.
That's incredible work you're doing. And your wife seems like such a nice lady. I spoke to her so many times via email. So please tell her hello for me and in real life. I worked at a cancer hospital when my parents, we all live in Florida now, but we're from New York. And I used to work at a cancer hospital in New York. And I can't tell you how many times across my desk, I'd get a denial for cancer treatment in the middle of it from an insurance company because the insurance company is saying you don't need this treatment, and the doctor is like, oh, no, 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 they do. So I saw it a little bit firsthand for the short period of time I was there. And it's just, the one thing about cancer is that it does not discriminate: young, old, race, religion. It comes at you, and it can be relentless, and it doesn't care who you are or where you're from or what you got or what you don't got. And it's really cool that you are helping people who can't help themselves. That's really cool.
Yeah, well, thank you. We really appreciate it. Like I tell everybody, I've tried more in the last 3+ years than I did the first 57 years on this planet. It's very gratifying. It's very hard at times. We're doing more things. We're trying to get an initiative passed, Stacey Strong initiative, going to Congress, trying to get a bill passed, and we're working on a big picture, not just the families. We don't feel like anybody should have to struggle with any type of cancer treatment. So we'll continue to do our best on a daily basis and really help those people that need it.
Bret, I want to thank. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dad.
That's an excellent cause. Everybody should be very proud of you.
Thank you.
Bret, I want to thank you for coming on with us today. My parents are the reason why I am a super huge baseball fan, and it's really been an honor to talk to a real life champion, Cy Young Award winner with my dad. It's really cool. And I have a 2-year-old, and hopefully, he likes soccer right now. He's only 2, but hopefully he, does great things, and I can pass upon to him what my dad was able to, introduce me to. So I appreciate you for doing that for us.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, Mike Sr. Great to see you as well. Thank you both for having me.
Yes, sir. Have a wonderful night. And like I said, tell your wife hello.
I sure will.
Hey,
Thanks,
Bret.
guys.
Thanks, sir.
All right.
Glad you're on. Very nice.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're out.
I'm going to stop recording and stop.